To trade or not to trade? That is the question. Can the Nuggets really be a title team without a big move? I got three scenarios for what the Nuggets can do before the trade deadline coming up right now. Nuggets Nation, do the Denver Nuggets need to make a trade? All right, as we sit here and record right now in real time, we're under 24 hours before the trade deadline comes and goes in the NBA. So what can the Nuggets do? The first question is, do they have to make a make a trade to be a title team? Or can they rely more on Joker? What else can that dude do? Do you get a better version of Jamal Murray? Is the team being healthy enough to turn this team into a title contender? All that is TBD. I don't know what else Joker can do. As I mentioned, health, it's pro sports. You're going to deal with injuries. Aaron Gordon's had the lingering calf injury forever. Jamal Murray's always injured. So just assume that that's going to continue there. Healthy, yeah, they can be a legit threat, but they haven't been healthy for a long time. So what now? What are the scenarios out there that can get the Denver Nuggets back to being a legitimate title contender, like a championship favorite, like they were a couple years ago? You remember when they won the NBA championship, it was, I used to know the date off the top of my head, but right around Christmas, they built a 10-game lead over then the Memphis Grizzlies, who were the 2 seed in the West, and never looked back. And they were looked at by us in the media, by you guys there in the fan base, by the national talking heads as the favorite to come out of the West and really win the NBA championship. Can they ever, in this year, get back to that point? All right, well, there are a couple of things that they can do here. And I want to go to something that Michael Malone, head coach of the Nuggets, and then Michael Porter Jr., Michael Jr. Porter, if you're Charles Barkley, has said this week about the trade deadline. Michael Malone was asked point blank period, hey, do you talk to any of these guys, Michael Porter Jr. specifically, about kind of their headspace with their name being mentioned in trade rumors? And Michael Malone's answer was, no, I don't, because we're not trading Michael Porter Jr. So he kind of ended all that. Now, we don't have to go that far back in history to realize that sometimes trades are made and the head coach is not informed. Just ask Jason Kidd, right? With what happened with Luka, Los Angeles, and the Mavericks. So it's not always the case where the coach is informed, but I think here in Denver, Michael Malone has earned that right to be told, even if him and Calvin Booth do not see eye to eye. So I'm going to take coach at his word. And then about 25 minutes after Michael Malone said that to the media, Michael Porter Jr. steps up, sits down at the podium, and tells us folks in the media, yes, he's heard the rumors. Yes, he's had conversations with the front office. And no, they tell him he's not going to be traded. Same thing with the situation with Dallas. If they're going to trade a player, despite maybe the outlier being LeBron James and Nikola Jokic, there are some star players that get to be told. Again, Michael Porter Jr. is not at that level. They wouldn't tell Mike until he was being traded, and he's acknowledged that in the past. But Coach Malone and the player themselves, 48, 72 hours before the trade deadline, said it's not going down. And I think really the first scenario there with Michael Porter Jr. is about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, there's a bunch of rumors right now surrounding KD and the Phoenix Suns. The latest is that Kevin does not want to be reunited with Steph Curry there in San Francisco and run it back with the Warriors. Why Kevin Durant wouldn't want that? I have no idea. You've already tucked tail once and joined the enemy, Kevin. Why wouldn't you just do it again and let Steph Curry carry you to an NBA championship like he did 2 times before? But Kevin says no. So what's next then for Kevin Durant? Would Kevin ever fit in Denver? One of the trade scenarios proposed out there and being talked about in this city is MPJ, Julian Strawther, Zeke Naji as a throw-in, and then you might have to throw that 2031 draft pick because the Suns are going to require more to bring Kevin Durant to the Mile High City. Sounds great, right? We're talking about some fantasy basketball. You know what your starting lineup would be? Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, KD at the 3, AG at the 4, and then the Serbian basketball, Nikola Jokic, obviously at the 5. That's a superstar starting lineup. But your bench? Who's on your bench then? Russell Westbrook and Peyton Watson? Will anybody score? And you know what else that does? I've mentioned this before here on Dover on Denver. That scenario means that the Denver Nuggets go into the second tax apron. So that starting five that I just gave you and the very, very short bench, because you're in the second tax apron, you can't do anything. So that starting five and that very minimum bench, you'd add Deron Holmes next year. Remember, he was the kid they picked out of Dayton and got hurt in summer league. So you'd add a player there, but he's essentially going to be a rookie. And how much is he going to contribute in his first year in the pros? You could not make trades. You could not trade draft picks, and you could not be a player in the buyout market because of the NBA rules of the second apron. And for that, like Randy Jackson, I'm out, dog. I don't want to get stuck in that situation with the same team for 2 consecutive years. Kevin Durant's a hell of a player, and he'd be an upgrade over Michael Porter Jr. for sure, but I just can't sit in that world for 2 consecutive years. The only way that would pay out is if they won back-to-back championships. And as good as I think that starting lineup is, I don't think it's good enough to win back-to-back championships. How the heck do you get through an 82-game regular season, keeping all those dudes healthy with absolutely no bench help? So that's scenario number 1 that I'm out on. Scenario number 2, well, Jimmy Butler. Could Jimmy Buckets come to the Denver Nuggets? Jimmy Butler is a guy that's been talked about a lot. And then you saw the Luka trade. You saw De'Aaron Fox go to San Antonio. And Jimmy and Pat Riley are still having an argument, a match over what happens with Jimmy Butler. I would also say this about Jimmy Butler. I'm an old dude, right? I'm 40 now. I almost said in my 40s. I'm not that yet. I'm 40. And there's some people in my life that are still single or perhaps like about to be on marriage number 3 or 4 sometimes. I'm not judging. Kind of judging. That's what Jimmy Butler is, right? Isn't Jimmy Butler kind of that attractive single person that's like 45 years old, but's on like marriage number 2 or 3? You signing up to be 4? I know I'm not. And I don't want to put the Nuggets in that situation either. You know what happens with Jimmy Butler relationships? They start well because you're in lust. And then they burn out with a big old flame and everybody gets roasted in the end. So that I'm out on too. Scenario number 2, Jimmy Butler. No, thank you. Do not bring that nonsense to the Nuggets locker room. It's actually a tight group of guys. The relationships in that locker room are very, very tight. The only thing Jimmy Butler does to locker room is create separation and contention inside of it. So thanks, but no thanks. Jimmy Buckets out on that. By the way, he has a player option that's north of $50 million for next year. Again, second apron for the Nuggets if Jimmy Butler shows up here. Another scenario is a guy named Caleb Martin from Charlotte. Caleb Martin is a guy that gets about 25 minutes a game and still scores less than 8 points per game. He's a defender, and that's a big advantage for what the Nuggets need. But again, what are you going to get? The salary matchups would be good for a straight-up trade Martin for Najee, but like I've said over and over again, why would the Charlotte Hornets take on Zeke Najee? Why would any NBA team take on Zeke Najee? Why would any NBA GM sign Zeke Najee? Outside of Calvin Booth, who actually signed Zeke Najee. So I'm intrigued by that idea. Martin's not a great player that's going to come back and give you this huge return or impact on the floor. But as I've said before, just get Zeke off the books. We're going to go into year 3 with Zeke Najee hanging over the Denver Nuggets and ruining their salary cap. So if that were the case, then the Charlotte Hornets would be, I hate to say the word, but like dumb enough to do that, I would certainly sign up for that. So that's scenario number 3. Like I said, I'm out on Jimmy Butler. I'm out on Kevin Durant. I'm slightly intrigued by Martin for Najee if the Hornets were to do the deal. The other question I have, if nothing gets done, which is where I'm leaning, I'm about 99% sure that the Nuggets will do nothing before the trade deadline. So how do they get better? That's the question. Can they be a title contender without making a trade? Joker can't do much more. I said that at the top. I'm starting to trust Jamal a little bit more, but what's he played? 12, 13 good games in a row? That's supposed to be at like 35, 40 at this point of the season, and it's at 12 or 13. So he still has a lot to prove. Michael Porter Jr. has been inconsistent. Aaron Gordon can't stay healthy right now. Second best player has been Christian Brown. He scored 20 multiple times over the last, let's call it 3-4 weeks, but again, I need to see more before I trust in that. And the bench, Peyton Watson can't hit the broadside of a barn when he's shooting a ball. It's not his fault. He shouldn't be asked to be a scorer. He's a defender, and he's being asked to do some more. Julian Strawther is still a little bit inconsistent. The dude just wants to chuck that thing up every time he gets it, instead of squaring your feet up, shoulders up to the basket, and taking a good shot. He's just trying to get them up as often as he can, that'll figure itself out, but it hasn't this far. So I'm in a position where they're not going to get better without a trade. There's not a lot of trades that make them immediately better, that don't have long-term implications that hurt the team. So I believe they're in a spot here before Thursday's 1:00 Mountain Time trade deadline where they do nothing. And then they just rely, and that's a scary thing, hope, and hope's never a strategy, that Jamal's healthy and gets better, that Nikola can elevate again, that Aaron Gordon's calf isn't a lingering problem for the next 3 or 4 months, that Michael Porter Jr. can be more of the guy that scored 36 and not the guy that scores 12 and 14 every other night. That's a lot of hope. That's a lot of hope that you hit green lights, and I'm not sure I can rely on hope with these Denver Nuggets. So those are my 3 scenarios. Nuggets Nation, would you say yes to any of them, or do you have another that I didn't even talk about? Tell me in the comments while you're there. Like and subscribe. Check out everything we're doing at Denver Sports YouTube. I will talk to you again real soon. But that's it. I'm done.